Good day, and welcome to today's web talk in our series, They Are Lying About Jews Again. I'm Andrea Spindle, Executive Director of the Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation and today's moderator. The Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation is a registered charity engaged in educating Canadians about all forms of anti-Semitism, especially that which masquerades as anti-Zionism. We are actively promoting the adoption and implementation of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism and its principles by all levels of government and public institutions. The IHRA definition is a key tool in the battle to stem the tide of anti-Semitism. Other tools include developing strong relationships with both Jewish and non-Jewish organizations, providing people with accurate history about Israel's legal, biblical, and historic rights, and standing proud as Zionists, whether you are a Jew, Christian, or Muslim, people of any faith or no faith. This overarching theme of our series is of primary importance, as anti-Semitism, whether from the far left, the far right, Islamists, or Black supremacists, is laden with lies, built on a mountain of falsehoods and myths, and indicates a steady stream of ancient tropes against the Jews, Judaism, and now also against Israel. Lies travel faster than truths and are so easy to concoct. After all, there's no research, validation of credibility, or anything required. One just has to write a rhetorical question about any human or natural disaster and then respond by blaming it on Jews. One can use creativity and issue a slanderous, even satanic statement about Jews and pitch it into cyberspace. Alternatively, one can make up references or quote some source, real or imagined. It seems preposterous, but any lie, no matter how outrageous, gets traction on the internet. But I think we need to also pay attention to the lies spread by a willing, biased press, leftist academics, lazy reporters and editors, social influencers, and anti-Israel politicians and policymakers. Our speaker today has taken on the challenge of exposing the lies and liars and holding them accountable. I am pleased to introduce Liora Rez. Liora immigrated to America from the former Soviet Union as a small child, escaping the horrors of socialism and anti-Semitism. Liora grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and proceeded to attend Brandeis University, where she earned her BS in neuroscience. She then obtained her MBA and subsequently worked in structured finance for over a decade. After becoming a mother, Liora switched her career focus to social media. And in 2012, she started the Jewish Chick brand, fully monetizing it shortly thereafter. After growing a sizable audience, Liora wanted to bring to the forefront the rise of anti-Semitism, which she was encountering in the social media space. With a group of like-minded individuals, she co-founded StopAntisemitism.org in 2018. StopAntisemitism.org works to hold anti-Semites accountable and to create consequences for their bigoted actions by exposing the threat that they present to all Americans and showing how their ideologies conflict with American values, morals, and principles. StopAntisemitism.org now reaches millions of people monthly. Before I turn the mic over, let me advise everyone that this web talk will be recorded and posted on the CAEF website tomorrow, so I invite you to listen again and share this with friends. All mics and videos will remain off, but I invite you to submit questions via the Q&A function on your Zoom screen. I will bring these forward to Liora after her presentation. And lastly, I want to remind you that CAEF is a charity and we welcome your donations that will enable us to continue to bring experts forward to speak, to conduct strategic projects, monitor anti-Semitism, and do public advocacy in Canada. You can donate online at caef.ca. And now over to Liora.
Hi, so thank you so much for having me. As Andrea had stated, we were started in 2018, and this coincided with the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting at the end of 2018, and our growth essentially had exploded in a very short amount of time. What we use to propel us and how we're different from other organizations in the States is that we use the power of social media, which Andrea had spoken to. I had worked in since 2012. And we really use our committed audience there to essentially, they're the front line and news source oftentimes for us. So that sort of sets us apart from other organizations in the States and globally, where essentially it's the power of social media, which is everybody's news source right now. So we take our audience, and essentially this propels us to the next level of exposing anti-Semites and creating consequences for them. We are very fortunate to have a very dedicated audience. We're estimating that about 80% of our audience on our social media platforms and our mailing lists, and those that frequent our website, are 35 and under. So this is really the next generation of Jews that we want to target, and we want, our number one message to them is, you're Jewish, you want to be loud and proud that you're Jewish. For instance, when I had immigrated to the States with my family, it was sort of the unspoken, the norm that you don't want to say too loudly you're Jewish, you don't want to bring attention to the fact that you're Jewish, you just want to, you want to assimilate as much as possible, you want to, quietly practice your Judaism. Where we take, and I personally take in my personal family life, the approach that, every other ethnicity and every other religion is so loud about who they are. Why are we not doing the same thing? Why are we not raising children to say, I'm a Jew and I'm a damn proud Jew, and I'm a Zionist and I am a damn proud Zionist? Why did we allow Judaism and essentially Zionism, which, by the way, always say that 90 to 97% of Jews are Zionists? Why have we so become afraid to publicly say that? So we need to switch that narrative. And by doing what we do, we're essentially targeting our younger audience to do that. So one of the things that we find on social media that is really, like Andrea had stated, propel the false narrative and villainize Jews. So we created a myth series on our website that enables social media users just to go there, copy and paste our videos, and they're able to share on their social media and basically disprove these old anti-Semitic tropes that were essentially used very much solely in Europe, for instance. And I'll speak to that in a little bit, and I'm sure everyone is going to be familiar and like, yeah, of course, that's been around since the medieval times. Or something that's been solely used in the Arab world against Jews, that now we're seeing the radical Muslims combining forces with these alt-right crazies that are, demonizing Jews in the same message. So we created this myth series essentially that enables our social media audience with one-click copy and paste that they're able to combat this. So I'm going to start right now the presentation, which is going to cover the myths, and we will take it one by one. Okay. So the first one, it has to be the oldest one in the book, right? We control the banks, we control the money. You look at these old cartoons. This one is decade plus year old. So soon to be a decade. This one from the right has to be one of the most popular memes circulating on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram. And again, this is where the millennials and Gen Zs are. So this is what they're saying. They're seeing the stereotypical Jew with a big hook nose, rubbing his hands. All he cares about is money, right? So something that we did is we made a video, and we took in the United States the top 5 financial institutions by asset holdings, and we looked at their CEOs. And again, these banks are not owned. We're in 2020. These are all publicly traded institutions. They are owned by their stockholders. So if you or I, for instance, hold stock in JP Morgan Chase or Wells Fargo, Bank of America, these kind of large financial institutions, we are essentially the owners. And it's important to why I mention this. So for instance, let's look at a few of the largest banks that are based in America, and a lot of them you can find in other countries. We have Citibank. The CEO is Michael Corbat. He's not Jewish. We look at JP Morgan Chase, who is one of the biggest financial guys, not only in the finance world, but also he's brought in to congressional hearings to constantly testify to the Financial Judiciary Committee in the States, Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon, the alt-right has claimed now for years that Jamie Dimon is in fact Jewish. Jamie Dimon is not Jewish. He's a Greek Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox individual. And there was actually a fight between the former CEO of Citibank by the name of Sanford Weill. Jamie Dimon was actually dating his daughter. The reason they did not get married, fun fact, because Jamie Dimon is not Jewish and he did not want to convert to Judaism. They didn't want to get married. So when that little fun fact is dispelled, and we've actually discovered a Swedish newspaper that had posted that Jamie Dimon is Jewish, when we had actually provided data that, look, Jamie Dimon did not marry a Jewish man's daughter because he's not in fact Jewish and didn't want to convert. They retracted it and issued an apology. So facts like this are super important, and we want to arm the social media audience that we have with these. So we made, again, like little fun videos about that. So let's go to the second one. So this has to be also one of the most popular myths out there, that we control the media. And again, we have this meme of the hook-nosed Jewish man circulating all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, on the alt-right channels, 8chan and 4chan. And it's made its way now into the Muslim Arabic media. If we look at the cartoon on the right-hand side, Palestinian Media Watch, PMW, had discovered this cartoon where an Orthodox Jewish man, if you look at his hat, you see the antennas coming out. And to the right, you have the globe with the sunglasses saying like, wow, what's in store now for us in Arabic? And this is portraying, obviously, the Jews own the media. So when we look at the US massive media companies that, again, are publicly traded companies, so they are not family owned, they are not individually owned, they have board of directors, they have stockholders like, again, you or I, if we were hold those stocks, these are the owners. So if we look at their specific, if we look at top media companies in the States, for instance, we have News Corp. So I'm sure everyone here has heard of Wall Street Journal. It's our major financial paper, or Fox News, for instance. Fox News is labeled as more of a right-wing news source in the States. The CEO of that is Robert Thompson. The CEO of News Corp is not Jewish. We look at CBS. CBS is in itself a huge organization, and it has multiple orgs under it. The CEO is an African-American man named George Cheeks. George Cheeks is not Jewish. We look at Comcast. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of Comcast in the States, but it's a massive media conglomerate. CEO is Brian Roberts. So I can go on and on. The last one is my favorite, Disney. Disney, we all know, Walt Disney was a massive anti-Semite. They passed down the reins, and now their CEO is Bob Chapek. He is not Jewish, despite the fact that a lot of people say his last name is Jewish. He's not. So again, we try to make another video where we can, with a copy, paste, and click, look, no, the media is not controlled by Jews, whether you like it or not. All right, let's go to Jews cause the world's plagues. So medieval times, our fault, right? Black Plague, cholera, we were poisoning the wells, the water. I want to say 3-4 years ago, we had, in America, for instance, we had a massive measles outbreak. The media enjoyed portraying the Jewish Orthodox Haredi world in New York as the cause of that, while there were parts of the Haredi world that did not believe in vaccinating against measles. You had massive heads of the rabbinical synagogues here issue statements that you must, or it's in your best interest to vaccinate your children against measles. The media, of course, ignored that. They ignored the fact that these anti-vaxxers, which are often from the radical progressive movements, refused to vaccinate their children. And again, this was blamed on the Jews. You have major publications here that have Haredi and Orthodox Jews plastered around saying, no, measles outbreak, blah, blah, blah. So we moved to 2020. What do we have now going on? Obviously, a global pandemic, the COVID-19 crisis, right? So the second this started, despite the fact that its origins are in China, we are blamed for the COVID-19 pandemic. We have, it's called the Holocaust. We've seen that go viral on social media, that it's a play on the Holocaust. And this is coming from more of the alt-right wingers. We've seen, if we look at this cartoon right here, it's being used by the Palestinian press that in order to suppress the poor Palestinians, we're dropping COVID bombs on them and purposefully infecting them. We've also seen, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, we've seen when you look under a microscope at an actual COVID cell, what do you see? You see Jews smiling back at you. So Jews are spreading the virus. We are at the front of the virus. And now with the race to get the vaccine, and what a lot of people don't realize, that the vaccine world, it's a big race, sort of say. You have France in the game, you have Germany in the game, you have America in the game, you have China, and you have Israel. Israel, for instance, was working on different COVID strains. And a lot of people don't understand that COVID has been around now for over a decade, various strains. Personally, my brother was diagnosed with COVID-63, which is a very common respiratory virus that was discovered in 2012. And with a simple Z-Pak or zithromycin round of antibiotics, it can instantaneously, you'll be better in a week. So a lot of people don't realize that the COVID respiratory strains have been around now for a while. So Israel, for instance, there was a lab there that's been working on various vaccines for different COVID strains now for a few years. What they did is switch course, and with the information that they were managed to develop in their R&D, they switched course and fully focused on the COVID-19. Now, what are the Jew haters and bigots saying? They're saying, aha, they knew about this. The Jews in Israel knew about this, and this is why they're ahead of the vaccine game. So despite putting out there the ministry in Israel that no, these labs actually have documented work now for years, because there are multiple strains, the media refuses to publish that. And they help that narrative that, you know what, maybe the Jews and the state of Israel did know about this. So maybe they made this, so at the end of the day, they can profit from the vaccine. So that's what we're seeing in regards to COVID. So let's look at the Jews control the government. This has to be one of my favorites. I'm a very black and white numbers person. As Andrea had mentioned, I had worked in finance for a decade. So to me, numbers don't lie. We have Jews controlling the US government. So guess how many presidents we've had in America that were Jewish? 0. We've had 0 vice presidents that were Jewish. Out of our senators, which are numbering 100 in total, we have 8 senators who are Jewish. We have, out of 50 governors, we have 2 that are Jewish. And out of the House of Representatives, out of 535, we have 34 that are Jewish. So we've never had a Jewish president. We've never had a vice president that are Jewish. Our governors are at a minimal. We have 2 out of 50. Yet for some reason, we see this cartoon that's, decades old. And now the Arab press and the Muslim press, right now, look at the earmuffs on our president's head. They have Stars of David on them. And essentially what they're trying to convey is Jews are in the president's ears telling him what to do. So we are controlling the president of the United States. So this is something that's been circulating specifically every single time we had September 11th just pass. So about a month prior, we see this really kind of make its headway again. We've seen the alt-right pass out flyers. If we look to the left, we have 9/11 was an inside job with the Star of David. And then if you look at the Jews did 9/11 Google dancing Israelis, we had that spray painted in America at an American university last year. And if you look at the bottom, this is one of the Christopher Bowen. He is one of the journalists that in 2005, 2006, he really helped propel this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Who I wanted to mention, by the way, this man is a horrific Holocaust denier. He literally monetizes on his YouTube channel the hatred of Jews. So he helped propel, along with two other individuals, that Jews were at fault for 9/11. So when we look at the numbers of the Jewish victims, mind you, we're such a tiny subset of the American population. People are shocked to realize that 15 to 17% of victims of 9/11 were Jewish. So that right there, if we helped propel this horrific tragedy, why is there such a high number of Jews? Like, we wouldn't take our own people as casualties. It doesn't make sense. So this again is a huge favorite amongst the alt-right. Then we did a little bit of digging, and with the help of one of our partners, we discovered a Somali imam that had stated in one of his sermons that some people did something, and he helped allude that it was Israel. Last year, or the year before, my memory fades me, Ilhan Omar made a speech at a CARE dinner in Los Angeles, I believe it was. And she mimicked that's when she was referring to 9/11, that some people did something. Now, a lot of people wanted, they think that she didn't want to say that it was Islamic terrorists that did this. She didn't want to obviously paint her own people in a negative light. We personally think she's mimicking what the Somali imam is saying, is that the Jews did it. Israel helped plan it. Israel helped, with the help of America, take down these towers, take down the plane. Israel is controlling your world. Jews are controlling your world. So we have, again, the culmination of the alt-right crazies with the radical Islamicists. And what do they have in common? They're painting Jews as the bad guy. So this is a favorite amongst the radical progressive, specifically the BDS crowd, the Boycott, Divest, Sanction crowd. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with one of my favorite American anti-Semites here, Linda Sarsour. She loves spewing the fact that Jews are white colonizers. So what she fails to mention, is that Israel, which again is a white colonizing nation, it's made up of 55% of Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews. So these are non-European Jews. For instance, my husband is a Yemenite Jew. So people like him, Iraqi Jews, Latino Jews, Sephardic Jews from Spain and Portugal, they're the majority in Israel. However, she never mentions that part. She mentions Jews like myself from the former USSR. I saw a comment on Instagram yesterday from one of her followers that Jews like myself woke up one day in 48 and we decided to be Jewish and we took the Palestinian land. So it's comical, but then when you have haters and bigots from the right, these neo-Nazis that are looking for any way to villainize us. They're saying, yeah, look at those white Jews. Despite the fact that 6 million of us were slaughtered for not being white, we're now white colonizers. So I wanted to throw up some Mizrahi and Jews of color up on the screen. I'm sure you guys are in Canada. You recognize the gentleman on the right, Drake. He is actually, his mother is a Russian Ashkenazi Jew, and he constantly posts on social media when he's celebrating Pesach, when he's celebrating Hanukkah. He's a father now, so he constantly posts throwback pictures to his bar mitzvah. So just, he's not a practicing Jew, but he is very proud of his Judaism. Does Linda Sarsour ever talk about him? Of course not. He crushes her narrative. What about Tiffany Haddish? She's a popular actress and comedian in America. Her father is Jewish. Her mother is not, but I believe is undergoing a conversion, and she had her bat mitzvah, and it was last year. She has a huge following on social media, so this is blasted everywhere to her millions of followers. So again, we have a proud Jewish woman. Why isn't the BDS crowd and Linda Sarsour, talking about this. It doesn't fit their white narrative that we are white colonizers suppressing Palestinians. So let's go to Jews give too much money to Israel. The billboard in the upper right hand was seen in the Midwest. Billboards like this were seen in parts of Connecticut on buses. They were seen at bus stops in Boston, certain areas of Boston. And let's talk about this $10 million a day. So Israel receives $3 billion from the US, okay? It is a very nice chunk of change. However, what a lot of people don't realize, and what we have up on these myth videos, is that for $1 Israel gets from the United States, they give back $6 in return in the forms of aerospace, defense, pharmaceuticals, computer research. So we're not giving them anything. This is an amazing investment. We're getting a 600% return on our money. Again, for $1 we give, we get 6 back. I would love to find any type of financial vehicle that gives me a 600% return, because I'll happily retire at 40 years old. So the next thing that a lot of anti-Semites love to talk about is AIPAC. It's our political action committee. And they're saying, with this political action committee, we buy the government. So again, I'm a numbers person. We dug down and wanted to see exactly how much money in 2019 did AIPAC contribute to their lobbying efforts. It was approximately $4 million. Now, it's a hefty amount of money. I'll give them that. $4 million is not chump change. But if we look at the Council of American Islamic Relations, which is also a lobbying group, guess how much they gave? $3 million. So they gave $1 million less. Although it is less, it's still, again, a nice chunk of change. So essentially, these two groups are neck and neck, right? Let's look at the other lobbying groups. The American Realtors Association gave $72 million. The big pharma industry, $27 million. The hospital association industry, which I had no idea even exists, $23 million. So we have these massive heavy hitters, but we have these bigots ignoring this, ignoring the fact that CARE almost gave us lobbies as much money as AIPAC. And what's always out there? Jews buy America via AIPAC. Israel controls America via AIPAC. But when we drill down to the numbers, it's not true. I wanted to really briefly touch upon this cartoon. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, being in Canada, but this came out, it was over Shabbat, because a user in Belgium alerted to this. This is in the weekend edition, and because the European audience gets it a little bit ahead, it was a Saturday to Sunday edition. And what do we see? We see the U.S. president wearing sunglasses wearing a yarmulke, blindly being led by a dog who is obviously Benjamin Netanyahu. So again, we see that America controls the government, America controls our president with our money. So number 8. Jews are behind the African slave trade. This is honestly one of the newer anti-Semitic tropes that we're dealing with on social media. And where did it stem from? It stems from Louis Farrakhan's 1991 book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. I'm very happy to report that this, I don't even know what to describe him, this dreck, this garbage, this vile, hateful human has finally been kicked off of YouTube. This is a massive effort put on, not obviously just by us, but many, many Jewish organizations. And finally, October 4th, YouTube made the decision to kick him off. So, I mean, this man was a Nation of Islam. They were getting millions of views, poisoning millions of minds. So the book that he's holding up, that's what started this myth that Jews helped perpetuate the American slave trade. Now, despite the fact that this has been disclaimed by the American Historical Situation, one of the greatest researchers from Harvard, Henry Gates, he clearly disputed this and verbatim said this is nothing but, quote, hate literature. And so this is super, super important. This is one of, again, the largest anti-Semitic myths that's being perpetuated on social media right now, specifically amongst two groups, the Black Hebrew Israelites, which I'm going to speak to next, and then the alt-right neo-Nazi groups. So let's talk about the Black Israelites. The Black Israelites, there were 2 incidents last year. Their claim to fame is that they are the lost tribe of Israel. And us Jews are descendants of Khazars, which is essentially, if I'm not mistaken, a kingdom from Turkey in that area. So this is the Khazar theory is a popular anti-Semitic conspiracy theory by neo-Nazis and the alt-right. They've sort of jumped on that train and said, you know what? No, we're the lost tribe. We are the real Jews. They took Farrakhan's shtick that the Jews are imposters, which he's been spewing for years now. And and if you look at the size of these men, many of the men that stand on the corners in the tri-state area, we see them a lot in New Jersey and New York, different areas of Brooklyn, Queens, they are massive in size. So they're very intimidating. Now, they essentially are a cult. They're a Christian cult which claims Jesus was Black, Jesus is the savior, and Jews are fake because the current Jews, us, we don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, so we're fake, we're Khazars, and they're the real Jews. And by the way, Jesus was a Black Palestinian, and we're also, the word phases, I'm losing my wording right now. We are displacing the Palestinians. So you have a mishmash of all these hate movements coming together that were fake, which came from the neo-Nazi right, that were Khazar, from the Khazar Empire. You have the Farrakhans and the Black Hebrew Israelites that are saying, no, they're imposters, we're the real Jews, combining with the fact that Jesus was a Black Palestinian and we're oppressing, that's a word that left my mind, we're oppressing the Palestinians. So you have, again, this mishmash of hate movements, which again are making us out to be fake thieves and oppressors. So now I wanted to quickly show you guys, I'm not sure if you recall the Jersey City shooting. These two, for that, our authorities are being a little bit on the hush-hush side, exactly how long they were planning this massacre, but they were at the forefront of the Jersey City shooting, and they ended up killing 4 people. And the location of this massacre, there was a grocery store in front, and in the back was a Jewish school. And their plan was foiled by an undercover cop who was sitting in his vehicle, and I'm not sure if he noticed something odd, but he essentially, what we believe, their goal was to go to the school. Their goal was not to stop just at the Jewish deli grocery store. So he helped stop what could be a even bigger massacre. But at the end of the day, 4 people were killed by these 2 Black Hebrew Israelites that claimed, after their social media profiles were scrubbed, that they are the real Jews, we are their imposters. Then there was a Hanukkah stabbing in Monsey this past season, where a rabbi, Yosef Neumann, he ended up being stabbed with a machete and ended up dying, unfortunately, because of his wounds. And after they started doing research into the attacker, there were a lot of Google searches that were saying that Jews are fake, Jews are imposters, Zionist this, Zionist that, and there's proof that's tying him to the Black Hebrew Israelites. So we personally think that this has to be on the authorities' top watch list, and this is probably one of the largest growing hate organizations in America right now. And lastly, we often hear that Jews are very self-centered, we're greedy, we don't care about others. But if we look, for instance, a lot of us are familiar with the organization IsraAid, and every time a catastrophe happens worldwide, IsraAid is out there first. This is, I believe, in Nepal. Haiti, the earthquakes, the hurricanes. Israel Aid is always out there, multiple instances in Africa. So that combined with the fact that we marched in the civil rights movement proudly. We've always stood with the African community. Right now, with everything that's happening in America with the police brutality, you have Jewish organizations and you have Jewish individuals screaming at the top of their lungs, "We've always stood with you. We'll always stand with you." So this is quickly dispelled when you look at the current and past history of the Jewish partnership with the African American community, with our outreach to the global audience, via, for instance, just one of the many organizations such as Israel Aid. So that summarizes my presentation. I'm going to hand it over back to you, Andrea. If anybody has questions for me, if I missed anything or I wasn't clear on anything, please let me know. Andrea, I think you're muted.
Yeah,
there.
Okay. Thank you, Liora. Actually, while I was watching it, I have to tell you, I almost came to tears. Some of what is being said is so hard to handle. I don't know how I could look at it every day as you are. It's just, it's soul shattering. But I do have some questions. My first question, and I have several from our audience, is what's been the most challenging story that you've revealed? Can you think of one that's been the hardest to track down and counter?
I'm trying to think. No, there's not one in particular. One thing that really bothered me is we have an extremely engaged young audience that I always talk about. And one of the challenges that we were facing when we first started is the social media platforms thought we were actually perpetuating hate versus exposing it. So they actually shut our platforms down a few times. We're now verified on Facebook and Twitter, and we're working with the social media platforms as an advocacy group and take our relationship further into what we can do to showcase this hate. We're still not verified on Instagram, hopefully, knock on wood, it's happening this week. But the biggest struggle that we've had is that our platform is removed. So we have an extremely engaged young audience that, and unfortunately, anti-Semitism is creeping into grades as early as 4th and 5th grade. So when our platforms are shut down, these kids go into a panic mode because we're one of these organizations that are very personable. I have a young child myself. And one of the things that I joke about, but in essence, it's very serious. I don't need my child going to a university where they're inundated by Students for Justice in Palestine and they're labeled a bad Jew because she's a Zionist. And I joke that she's going to end up going to a Mormon school at this point. So I have a personal stake in this. So one of the things that really bothers me, I think maybe because I am a mother, is that when middle schoolers and kids in 5th and 6th grade say, "I'm afraid to say that I'm Jewish," this is what happened. So things like that really bother me. And what I can tell you is what I say is that you have to take the opposite effect into what you would normally do. And instead of cowering, you have to scream at the top of your lungs, "I'm a Jew, I'm a proud Jew. How dare you make fun of me? How dare you make jokes about the Holocaust? I lost family in the Holocaust," or even if you didn't lose family, how dare you? You talk to your parents, you right away have your parents engage at the administration. Whatever you do not drop it, because again, any other race, any other ethnicity, they wouldn't drop it. So that emotionally is more relevant to me.
Right. Well, we salute you for that. I don't know whether you can distinguish, but we hear debates all the time about the danger of anti-Semitism is coming from the alt-right. Now, we know that's not true. It's across the spectrum. Is there one source that is more dangerous? The far left, the alt-right, the Islamists, the black supremacists? Is there one?
So there's different angles. When you're talking about policy danger, it's a bit of the alt-right neo-Nazis are not worrisome to myself in Congress. What's worrisome are our congresswomen such as Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who have a sick obsession with Israel and Jews. However, when I'm personally at shul for Shabbat, I do not sit near windows, because I'm not sure if a neo-Nazi decided that day to post a manifesto on 4chan and go shoot up my synagogue, heaven forbid. So, however, as I just spoke to, I am worried in 10 years when my daughter is in college, if she's going to be harassed and bullied by students of justice in Palestine. So when you're talking about dangers, there's different types of dangers. There's policy dangers, which influence our laws. There's physical violence dangers, which, you know, dictate where and if we go to synagogue. And then there's dangers for our young students that are coming from the radical progressive movement and groups such as BDS and Students for Justice in Palestine. So you have these bigots and groups coming at us, and then you throw in the Black Hebrew Israelites that, you know, they were chalked up as crazies 5 years ago, and now they're shooting up grocery stores. So they're not just, you know, these, oh, haha, let's forget about, no, they are violent criminals. So we have to pay attention to the entire gamut, because I always say, if we politicize anti-Semitism, if we put our tunnel vision on, you know where we're going to be? We're going to be in 2020. I really wish that this started 10 years ago, because I think we're partially to blame. We had so much blinders on. You know, you have Democrats in America who love to push the neo-Nazi aspect. You have Republicans that want to ignore, you know, what's going on in their own party. So I think we need to take the blinders off and realize that this is coming at us from 5 different directions, and we cannot prioritize one over the other. I hope I answered that.
Yes, and for the Canadian audience, I want to say that it's our experience that it's true here too. So we shouldn't be ignorant of it. And what is shocking is the alliance between the left and the right when it comes to anti-Semitism. Absolutely. And or the Red-Green Alliance, as it's referred to. I think we would agree. I haven't seen the Black Israelites here, although I'm familiar with the horror that they've brought about. But I think people here need to realize that it exists on both sides, and they are different types of horror at the moment, right? The murders have been conducted more by the alt-right, but the larger percentage of people pushing the narrative, I think, are on the left.
Right, exactly.
So another question is, do you see other Jewish organizations taking on the fight to the effect, or to working with you, creating a positive effect? I'm aware that you published, and I meant to hold it up to everybody and I left it downstairs, but I'm aware of the book, The New Anti-Semitism. You might want to mention that.
So one of the things that it's my motto is, you got to take the ego out of it. I am more than happy with my organization to operate from the backstage if somebody wants to get their name out. I think one of our detrimental factors that has occurred before is a lot of these other larger organizations, they are very egocentric. And they are afraid to partner up with organizations, where we take a totally different approach. The more the merrier. I don't care about the spotlight. I don't care about getting my name out there. Again, I prefer to operate from you know, behind the curtain. So we had co-authored with dozens of other organizations a report, The New Anti-Semites, that was released. And it's on our website, on our landing page, if you scroll down a little bit, with dozens of other organizations that had partnered with us. So my philosophy is, we are stronger together. And again, whether we've partnered with progressive organizations, we've partnered with conservative organizations, we've partnered with, you name them, we've essentially partnered with them, minus the whole Jewish Voices for Peace crowd, because we all know they're about as Jewish as an Easter egg, as I like to say. So we've actually, in August, we had sent out to Facebook a letter demanding the IRA definition of anti-Semitism being fully adopted on their platform. We had over 140, if I'm not mistaken, organizations globally join onto this effort. We received a response within 24 hours from Sheryl Sandberg and Peter Stern, and within 36 hours following that, they had implemented not all, but 2 specific factors of IRA. So again, this is a perfect example of when we work together, we can accomplish more and more. So that is something that I'm so proud of, are these relationships and partner orgs that we work with.
That's great. We too believe that we need to collaborate. You put it better than I might have about not their ego invested, but yes, I think it's terribly important. And I'm also pleased that you brought up IRA, because that is a major thrust of what we're doing and working with several other organizations here. What we've noticed is the major objection is coming from independent Jewish voices and Jewish Voices for Peace. So every time a municipality in Ontario proposes a resolution to adopt IRA, the first people to raise the voice are considered Jews, and that's creating conflict, and it actually has resulted in, all across Canada, actually they've done it, not just here, 4 cities that have deferred or voted against it, or done a vote in secret, practically. So do you have any comments about that?
Oh, do I have a comment? So in May of 2019, I was randomly scrolling social media at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had stumbled upon the Jewish Voices for Peace. They probably made some outlandish comment. And I looked at their Facebook page, and I'm just like, let me go look at who their admins are, right? Because after the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal with Facebook in America, they have to be more transparent about where their admins are sitting, you know, who they are, who's a page owner, yada, yada, yada. So I had thankfully done a screen grab of where their admins are, and take a wild guess where one of their admins was sitting. Lebanon.
Oh my gosh.
So I want to say there's probably about 90 Jews left in Lebanon, and they're probably the age of, I don't know, 70, 80 years old. And I think it's pretty safe to assume that they're not adminning Jewish Voices for Peace. So this is what leads me to believe that Jewish Voices for Peace, and I always say this, they are about as Jewish as an Easter egg. They're a fraud. And I'm convinced that multiple organizations like this, they go out and look for the disenfranchised young Jew that doesn't have really a home in the Jewish community. Or for instance, their entire life they have a Jewish father, but they have a non-Jewish mother, and they've been told by the Jewish community, you're not Jewish. You know, your Judaism is by the matrilineal lines. So essentially, we're making these poor kids feel that they're not connected to the Jewish community. If not now, Jewish Voices for Peace, other organizations are grabbing onto them. Students for Justice in Palestine, they love to recruit poor kids like this. So you know who's at fault? We're at fault. We are at fault for not making them feel welcome, for saying, no, your mother's not Jewish, or no, you didn't have a bar mitzvah, because, you know, who knows, maybe they couldn't afford a bar mitzvah. But we are at fault for not embracing these Jewish kids. And now these kids are 20, 25, 30 years old, and they, I don't know if they hate themselves or they're self-loathing Jews or they want to get back of the Jewish community, but they are essentially helping to villainize Jews and vis-a-vis Israel, right? Because Israel is a white colonizing oppressor of Palestinians and Black Jesus. Going back to my presentation.
I think for the Canadians listening, it's really important to realize, as we have realized, that independent Jewish Voices, which might be 5 or 6 Jews in Canada, I don't even think they're that large, is the front for the BDS movement. Every time there is an action by the so-called Canadians for Peace and Justice in the Middle East, which is definitely not about Justice for Peace organization.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's never about helping the Palestinians. It's villainizing the Jews. They can care less about the Palestinians. They want to villainize the Jews. That is the goal of all of these organizations.
And here they've been backed by trade unions and certain leftist organizations. So I just want people to be aware, we're seeing the Jewish names leading the list, so to speak, and we need to be conscious of that and deal with it. I have a question here from our president, because you spoke about being a proud, unapologetic Zionist, which is a very important theme for us as well. So the question is, but if we are proud Jews, should we not be proud when we do control positions, whether it's media or universities or whatever? We have a president, Jewish president at the University of Toronto.
I cut out for a sec. Can you repeat that? Should we not what?
Be proud when we do control, have a controlling position, not ownership so much.
No, I see.
Yes. I mean, we are backing away from that. My Zeta would have said we must never run a Jew in a political campaign because we'll get vilified. So he would have said, stay under the radar, right?
Yes. So that is a fair question. And by no means are these anti-Semitic myths telling Jews to not be proud of our hard work. I mean, the core of my family as a child, and I'm sure of the majority of the Jewish families, is education and hard work, and you succeed in life. And what else matters, you know, in our homes is health, children, and education. So we should never, ever be apologetic. But it's a different thing when a bigot comes to us and says, look, you own the media. Okay, that's great. While there's many Jews working in media, and you know that might be true, here are the facts. No, the Jews are not controlling the media. So by presenting facts, we by no means are minimizing our achievements. And taking that to another level, there are multiple other cultures which hold education and familial ties and the upraising of children to be successful. Why are we the only ones vilified for doing that? So it's kind of a parallel pathway that we're taking, that no, your BS is not true. Actually, here's how much money is given to Israel. Here's who's heading up the banks. Here's this. But at the same time, you have other cultures and religions and societies that equally value education and success and the growth of children. Why are Jews only being villainized for it?
Can you, have you identified within your various programs, and I love the Anti-Semite of the Week images, leaders in the BLM movement? Do you have anything to say about what's happening there? Because we know Jews were first to stand with African Americans, not only with King, but even more recently.
Of course. So the BLM movement stemmed from Ferguson in 2016, I believe. And I personally, who knows if there's any validity to this, I just think it's very bizarre that this organization got propped up and got so much attention on a federal election year, a presidential election year, just like as it is now. So coincidence or not, it just piqued something of interest to me. So BLM scrubbed their website. The George Floyd incident happened in July, I believe. They scrubbed their website shortly after it happened. I want to say within 2 days. There were prior snapshots and articles written that that anyone can Google. They had a very harsh position on Israel, which is, we are colonizers, we're white, we're oppressing the Palestinians, yada, yada. Immediately after the George Floyd incident occurred, they scrubbed that. Then as of 2 weeks ago, they redid their website again, because in America, their popularity was beginning to decrease because of the increased violence and rioting that they were being associated with. So they redid their website again. Now, it's very hard to say who they are, who's funding them. They have made so much money. They're a cash cow. What they're doing with that money, God only knows. I know that the Instagram links that are very popular amongst the Gen Z and millennial crowd is tied to a URL link in Colombia. Oh. So explain to me why you have BLM money funneled through a URL link in Colombia. Again, it's like that admin for JVP sitting in Lebanon. Something isn't sitting correctly. Now, if we look at the founders of BLM, they're Marxists. Marxists are, normally tied to large anti-Semitic movements. So yeah, you have a lot of Jewish groups that are very supportive of them. You have a lot of Jewish groups that are very critical of them and claim that they are anti-Semitic. They are doing such a phenomenal job of covering their true colors. I'm honestly baffled to what they're doing, where they're getting, well, we know where they're getting their money. It's all grassroots, and it's millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. What are they doing with that? Are they reinvesting in Black communities? Are they reinvesting in training programs with police departments? Are they doing outreach programs with Jewish communities, Hispanic communities? We don't know. So it's so hard to say yay or nay. Everybody, wants a label. I can't provide that. I honestly am baffled. I will say one thing, they do a phenomenal job in covering their tracks.
I'm going to just relay comments. Several people have pointed out how much they appreciate your Anti-Semite of the Week.
Thank you.
And I will say to everybody
we got a lot of critique about it at first.
Yeah, so if they haven't signed up, it's stopantisemitism.ca,
StopAntiSemitism.org.
.org. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Our
so I want
brand,
everybody to
our
sign up.
brand logo is our website.
Right. So a couple of questions I'll put together. One is, what have been, if anything, the consequences of what you've been doing in exposing anti-Semites? And the second part of that from another attendee is, what can we do to help? What action would you recommend to individuals such as those of us in Canada?
Sure. So I can tell you, for instance, one of the mass campaigns that we've had with our partner organizations is getting the Nation of Islam and Louis Farrakhan off of YouTube. So this was a massive win October 4th. When YouTube finally had removed their channel. So we do calls to action for everything from that to, we have a call to action right now with the City University of New York Law School. One of their law students near Dean Kiswani threatened to light a Black man on fire for wearing an IDF sweatshirt. So the video essentially went viral. Sunni Law, they put out a statement, then they deleted the statement, then they put out another statement, then they deleted that statement. Then their dean had sent out a response stating that, you know what, her actions are covered under the First Amendment. So we have a law school dean in New York saying that, you know what, this isn't violence, this is just defense against Israel's colonialism. So we're now trying to take that a step further and take that to the Department of Education and help file a Title VI violation, because SUNY New York is a federally funded program. So you know what, taxpayers like myself are kind of sick of giving millions and millions of dollars to universities to help spew Jew hatred. And at the top of the university, when a dean's role is to protect all of their students, not just particular ones that they have an affinity for, they need to protect their Jewish students, they're not. So things like that, we have actions, calls to action for that. And I'm sorry, your second part of the
question. It was really about what we can do, what can individuals do to assist or participate. And I will say that I saw the letter for CUNY and I did write one.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. Thank you. The more, the better. So the number one thing that I can say is get on Facebook, get on Twitter. If you're not comfortable with Instagram, Instagram is kind of it's a social media platform more for millennials and Gen Zs. Get on Twitter, follow us, and share. I cannot stress this enough. We do not do this for the likes and comments. This could be the furthest thing. I'm not interested in popularity. I'm interested in exposure. We're often the original source of content. The more shares it gets, we have a lot of reporters and global NGOs following us. They pick up on the news, they share, and then it gets into the traditional mainstream press. So we always need help. Get on Twitter, get on Facebook, tag the schools, tag the local media in these areas, tag the state representatives. The more exposure, the better. Again, social media is king. That's how our news is filtered right now.
Okay, so my last question is social media. In Canada, we've learned that two parliamentarians, one from the Conservative Party, one Liberal, have just joined the Interparliamentary Task Force on Combating Online Hatred. And I believe it was an initiative of the US Congress. Are you doing any representation to the task force? Do you believe that online hatred can be controlled, stopped, eliminated?
So until the social media platforms step up and stop acting as publishers and rather as active participants and stop monetizing hate, which they are doing. YouTube is the largest offender, in my opinion, of that. No, it's never going to stop. Jew hatred, for instance, is a $1 billion monetizing industry. So they're not going to stop that until certain policies are enacted. I can tell you that there are certain propositions right now. There's a publisher section. I'm not familiar exactly with the exact wordage, but it's proposition or language 230. So again, it removes the publishers, Facebook, which owns Instagram and WhatsApp, Google, YouTube, which are essentially one and the same right now. Until their coverage is removed, they are free to allow these bigots and anti-Semites and racists to continue to monetize their platforms. One thing that I did want to speak on when it comes to social media, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it in Canada, but the big topic now is QAnon. in America. So we did a little bit of digging in who is QAnon, because I believe our president was asked about it. He said, I don't know, but I think they're fans of mine. Who knows? But I honestly was baffled as to who these people are. So QAnon was started by a husband and a wife sitting in their kitchen trying to make money. And they roped in a YouTuber who worked as a social media influencer and started throwing out these random conspiracies about pedophilia rings, and it escalated to Pizzagate, and they were hacking merchandise with Q on it. So it somehow was labeled as anti-Semitic. And then you have, of course, bigots jumping onto the QAnon, and you have, when ready, abled bodies that are bigots are happy to join onto a new hate movement, you don't need to twist their arms. It's like the Nazi collaborators in Lithuania and Ukraine. You really don't, you didn't need that. You did not need to twist their arms much to help massacre Jews, right? So we're looking at something like that, which was essentially started at a kitchen table with a husband and wife trying to sell t-shirts with Q's on it. So again, it's one of these movements that has caught the attention of Congress. It's been labeled now anti-Semitic. However, we're not sure.
But not banned. They're not treated
Who's
as
at the head?
terrorists.
Right. It's not. But now certain platforms are banning it. But they're it's a crapshoot in regards to what's allowed and what's not.
Right. Well, as I said at the beginning, you can create hate by just waking up in the morning and broadcasting a lie, and the lie will go everywhere. That's the easiest.
That's the
thing to
power
do,
of social media. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Liora, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank you very much. It's been very enlightening, very encouraging. The work you're doing is amazing.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to send you a specific request so you can now write a letter here, because the University of Toronto needs to hear from you.
You got it.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. And remember, this recording will be available tomorrow on our website. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.